Hello and welcome to I've Seen Everything. Folks, we have another short one for you here today. Still trying different things on this channel, still experimenting, and I just got back from the theater seeing Deadpool and Wolverine. Now I know what you're thinking. Nobody, and I mean nobody, has put a review out here online. I mean, I'm the first. I can't believe nobody thought of this before. It is a first time for me as far as just doing a straight movie review out here, but I thought, why not? We're just throwing things against the wall out here, see what works. It will be weird to make a video without having to edit together all the rest of that extra footage as far as, a reaction or a watch along or something. I don't know what I'll do with the rest of my day, but I'll try to come up with something. Anyway, my thoughts on Deadpool and Wolverine. I've seen these before. People generally start out with a non-spoiler review, and then they go into spoilers. So, non-spoiler review. It was good. Go see it. Spoiler. No, I'm just joking. We can say a little more than that. This movie was made by people who truly want to make the fans happy, who love and appreciate what's come before, what came before the MCU. Even Kevin Feige, especially Kevin Feige in many of these cases, because I don't know if everybody knows this. I'm sure a lot of people know this. It's not, secret, but there might be people who don't know. Kevin Feige worked on a lot of these superhero projects before the MCU existed. He was a producer or an assistant producer or someone involved in the creation of X-Men movies. I don't know for sure all the projects he worked on. He may have worked on Spider-Man, I don't know. I think at least the Fox stuff, Fantastic Four, all that kind of stuff. Leading toward trying to have something probably like the MCU, or maybe when he finally saw an opportunity for it, he was the person to spearhead it to make it come to life. It is good to have people in charge who are also fans of the material, who have respect for the material. And this movie, in certain ways, made fun of not respecting what had come before, but also in actuality did respect what came before and kind of brought some of it together to give it one last hurrah before we move on into the future with the whole, Fox and Disney merger stuff. So for anybody who's enjoyed, this is still part of the non-spoiler, for anybody who has enjoyed Marvel superhero movies from the year 2000 on, or in some cases, even before the year 2000, don't want to give away what that is until we get to the spoiler part. This is a moment for those things to shine once more before we move on. It's a lot of fan service. It's fun. I was actually interested how it would work for somebody who hasn't seen those movies and doesn't know the references. My wife went with me. She hasn't seen most of that stuff and didn't get most of it, but she still enjoyed the movie. She had fun. I asked her if the story worked as somebody who didn't know all the X-Men stuff and all that. She said, yeah, it made sense. I mean, she did watch Loki with me, so she understood about the TVA. She actually said that might be the hardest thing for her to have understood if she hadn't seen Loki, was what is this thing, the TVA, and what are they doing? But that's in the trailer. Everybody knows TVA's in there. If you've loved those things, if you've loved what the MCU has done so far, but you've loved the Deadpool movies and all the X-Men stuff that came before, and some of these other projects that maybe just kind of faded away on their own, and you want to kind of get back in touch with those for a moment, this is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fan service. At the risk of a pun, it's a good time at the movies. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on to the spoilers. Spoilers. We're going to have hand motions to signify where the video goes into different sections. Maybe I should start doing that overall. That won't get annoying or anything. Where to begin? Really, where to begin? There was some of this stuff they gave away in the trailer. I'm really surprised they gave away Laura in the trailer, or X-23. I don't get a chance to go to the theater all that much anymore, even though I grew up loving going to the movie theater. And there was a good chance, normally, this would have ended up waiting until it came out on streaming for me to watch it, or it came out on digital at home, at least for me to watch it. But I'm glad I actually went to the theater for this one. And I had to, because I wasn't looking for spoiler stuff, and I was seeing stuff online. Because, again, something like this comes out and people want to talk about it. So I like, honey, we need to go. We need to go. Or I'm going to go see this. Do you want to go with me? We have to go to the movie. And I'm glad I did. There were definitely some things in there that I didn't expect, even though there were some that I knew were coming, some that were in the trailer. They really set the tone right off the bat. People worrying about how they're going to tiptoe around the very somber and emotionally resonant ending of Logan. And they basically just said, F it. said, not only are we not going to respect that, we're going to make comedy out of completely disrespecting that. Like, just make it a whole comedic, bloody fight scene piece of disrespecting this. And like he said in the movie, kind of a team up in that he's ripping apart dead Logan's body to use pieces of his adamantium body to kill all these TVA agents. We see what's happened to Deadpool's life, or to Wade's life, where, you know, things have kind of fallen apart. He and Vanessa have kind of fallen away from each other, which is, you know, sad to see, especially considering went to all this trouble to bring her back. They never address how Shatterstar got back. Shatterstar died too before she died, and then he brought her back and all this stuff. They were planning on having kids. Apparently that kind of fell apart after the events of Deadpool 2, or he's brought into the TVA, given an opportunity to join the sacred timeline that were apparently, it was confusing at first. Like, I felt like we kind of got rid of the whole sacred timeline idea, but then obviously makes sense. This guy's a rogue TVA agent, basically, who's trying to find another way to bring back the sacred timeline as opposed to pruning people. We get Deadpool hopping through, seeing all different versions of Wolverine. That was funny. Just all these different, the one with the hair, the comic accurate one as far as the height, just so many different versions of the character. I'm sure I'm forgetting some now. I'm gonna have to watch the movie again. But finally landing on our Wolverine, or the one that is our Wolverine for this movie. Because our Wolverine apparently is the one who's dead, that we use a skeleton to kill people. They tell us that this Wolverine let down his entire world. And they do go into some detail with that. I guess they didn't want to focus on it too hard. I'm wondering how humans hunting for mutants would be able to wipe out all of the X-Men while Wolverine was gone. So that's maybe a little bit of at least a question, if not a plot hole. But they tell us why this Wolverine is where he is eventually, at least by the fire with Laura, and that he turned and started killing people, even killing innocent people. And so it is really kind of a beautiful way to lay this out, that this is a real redemption for this version of Wolverine. I was glad to see Laura again. It did make me a little sad ever since I saw Logan. I had hoped for a sequel to Logan, just called Laura. Similar tone, you know, this kind of near future but Western style type thing, where she's kind of taken up this mantle of this kind of gritty wanderer as she's, you know, become an adult, following Logan's example. And she still has her connection to her friends that she escaped with, but that she's wandering around, kind of the lone gunman, or the lone, you know, person with the claws, helping people who are in bad situations. You know, that story has so many different applications, or that setup has so many different applications that you can utilize. And I would have loved to have seen a version of that type of story with her leading the charge. And who knows, maybe we could still get that. I don't know where that leaves us based on how they've ended this movie, but at least she's still in play. That was a great dodge. You have to give him respect for that dodge with Chris Evans. Everybody saw him and thought Captain America. But to be honest, that wouldn't have made a terrible amount of sense anyway. I mean, they have variants and things like that, but the Captain America from our timeline is older at this point. He's in his 80s or 90s. I mean, they haven't said where he is. That's the thing. In everything where they could have mentioned him, they haven't had a funeral for him. They haven't said that he's dead. They just said he's gone. So you still have to believe, maybe somewhere in the new Captain America movie or something like that he's going to show up at some point, at least as a reference, or at least as a, you know, deathbed kind of thing, or a funeral or something. Like, I have to believe they haven't specifically said that he died for some reason. But that dodge with Chris Evans, thinking that it was Captain America, and then the reveal that this is the Human Torch from the now defunct Fantastic Four movies. Interesting to have not just one, but two Human Torches that have technically been a Marvel character before, Michael B. Jordan and Chris Evans, and they've found other places in the MCU. I mean, Killmonger didn't have that long of a run. That was a fun moment and a fun sequence with Chris Evans. We have the bad guys show up. They tease Sabretooth, the original, like, not the Liev Schreiber one, in the trailer, and man, did they show pretty much all of his performance in the trailer. Because for the joke, he pretty much just immediately dies, doesn't he? Gets decapitated by Wolverine. A bunch of different references to people. Pyro, I didn't remember Pyro from the original ones, but again, it's been a while since I've seen the old X-Men movies. It might be a good thing for me to watch out here. But just so many references as we go along, as seeing different little bits of villains and heroes and things like that. I don't recognize everything in the void landscape there. I'm sure there's all kinds of Easter eggs and references I'm not picking up to things that are just kind of sitting there. especially Fox-related stuff. But we get to what is the corpse of Ant-Man or Giant Man, or however they refer to him when he's made himself big, that has been turned into the home base of Cassandra Nova. That's an interesting prospect, especially if you get deeper into the structure. Another one I didn't get, that whatever that rocket thing was that Deadpool and Wolverine escaped on from Cassandra Nova the first time, I don't know what that was. It feels like it was supposed to be significant. But we get to just fight sequences that are just fan service, and I don't say fan service in a bad way. They were glorious. They like, you could tell the filmmakers were like, we know this is what the fans want to see, and we're going to give it to them. They did not spare anything as far as swearing or violence or blood or raunchy humor or anything like that when it came to this. I feel like they really felt a responsibility to put people's minds at ease, that even though this is technically under the Disney banner, it's still going to be Deadpool. It's not going to be like Deadpool light. They're still going to give you a legit Deadpool movie. And they certainly had all the references to do that, all of the jokes and the dirty things to do that. I was openly laughing in the theater when Logan and Wade got brought to this lair, and we didn't know who brought them there. And when each of the characters walked into that room, I couldn't believe they brought Elektra back. That was hilarious. I wasn't necessarily surprised at the other two. I kept wondering if more were going to come. Those are the references I started seeing. I saw something where they were sitting down to interview Wesley Snipes, and it had to do with Deadpool stuff. And I'm like, why would they be interviewing him? Oh, that's why. Which was hilarious that they brought him back. The kind of clincher was Channing Tatum. I saw something about that. Like, okay, I'm gonna spoil all these surprises for myself before I get a chance to see this movie. I've got to go see the movie. So they really had a lot of fun with everything. They made tons of fun of Ryan Reynolds, tons of fun of Hugh Jackman, tons of fun of all of these movies that have happened and hadn't happened. Channing Tatum never got to play Gambit. They really played up his Creole accent. They even got Wesley Snipes to make fun of himself about Blade, which, if you believe what people said when we got to the third Blade movie, Wesley Snipes didn't have much of a sense of humor about that kind of thing. So it's nice to see that he's gained more of a sense of humor about it. They really ought to give him a role in the new Blade movie, like some kind of supporting thing, but something as a nod to what he did with those movies back in the late 90s and early 2000s. I mean, that's the issue. You kind of dance around with these things. They talk about Deadpool and Logan being like the first R-rated comic book movies. They weren't. Blade was the first well, not even that. Blade was one of the first R-rated comic book movies, and you can feel however you want about the original Blade. Most people, I think, like that one. It's usually Blade 2 and especially Blade Trinity that they tend not to like as much. But there was another R-rated Marvel movie even before that. I wonder if they toyed with the idea of bringing back this reference, but they figured maybe nobody would get it. In 1989, there was an R-rated Punisher movie starring Dolph Lundgren as Frank Castle as the Punisher, which was significant too because Marvel didn't have much of a superhero like comic book movie presence in the 20th century. They basically had almost no presence with that as far as actual feature films. The Dolph Lundgren Punisher in 89 and the first Blade movie in 98 were basically the only feature film presences they had. To see Jennifer Garner back playing Elektra again, even her having a sense of humor about that her Daredevil apparently died, and she said, oh, it's fine. That was great. Jennifer Garner is not what was wrong with those movies. They could have done a lot better job with those movies. And then we get Laura, of course. And that was a beautiful way to do that as far as bringing back that emotional core, that emotional connection. This Wolverine knows, or this Logan knows, that this is supposed to be someone important. Wade has described who this is, but he doesn't actually know her. But she was very close with a version of him. She maybe has a view into the person he's capable of being. And because of that, even though she doesn't know this Logan either, she believes in him. And she hopes that he will rise to what she knows he can be. And he does. And it's beautiful. And it's beautiful to see them together at the end. I would love to see more of the two of them together, even though this isn't her Logan, even though this isn't her dad technically. To see them do something else would be amazing. They were great together. And there's still certainly stories there that could be told. And it's possible. I mean, it's certainly not necessarily guaranteed or even likely. But I do like the fact that they've left all these characters in a universe where we could never see them again and they would just be fine. Or They could pull him out anytime to do a project. Hugh Jackman never has to officially hang up the claws as Wolverine if he doesn't want to. He could never play him again, but the door has been left open in such a way that if he ever wants to come back, he can. They mentioned Henry Cavill playing Wolverine in here, showed him as one of the variations of Wolverine. I had not heard that one, but that would be fantastic. I agree with what Deadpool said about how he was mistreated. Brief tangent, Henry Cavill was, for me, amazing casting as Superman. He would have been dream casting as Superman. As somebody who loves Superman, I just wish they had given him better material. That was not his fault. But we'll leave that there since this is a Marvel video. We don't know what happened to Blade and Elektra and Gambit at the end of the movie. We didn't see them. Wade talks to B-53 about helping these people that helped them. So presumably they went back when they got Laura and did something to help all of them. They were still alive when we left them. So it'll be interesting to see if they come back in some way at some point. But likely that's the last we'll ever see of them, I would imagine. The fight with all the Deadpools was really fun. My only disappointment, especially with the Lady Deadpool, I feel like I recognized Blake Lively's voice there. I don't know if that was actually her in the suit. I know a lot of this ends up being stunt people, and especially in fight sequences. I really wish we had had a moment where maybe she took off the mask or something so we could have seen it was her under there. That would have been funny. Her and Wade could have had a few jokes back and forth. We didn't really get to stay on that moment as long as I had hoped for. I would have liked just a little bit more there. But they had a lot to do in this movie. They had a lot to get to, and that was a fun fight sequence. And the fact that Peter coming in was what ended the whole fight. Man, they have sure made good use of Peter. I mean, he was just supposed to be a visual joke in Deadpool 2 of, hey, here's this normal guy, this guy with no powers or anything, who just showed up to be part of X-Force, like he just needed an activity, like, you know, joining a pottery class or something like that. It's like, oh, I just need to get out of the house, you know. So I'll join a superhero group that all dies except for me. Well, he died too, but Wade went back and saved it. But for him to be the emotional core of this whole movie, for him to be the person who is stuck with Wade through all of his tough times, just trying to get him to believe in himself again, to save the day during that big fight, to be like the good friend who refuses to abandon Wade is a beautiful use of a character that I'm sure was just supposed to be, again, a visual joke in Deadpool 2. And he was such a fan favorite that, like, we got to use this guy more. I hope we see Peter again. I love that Peter is outwardly flirting with B-53 and she is reciprocating. Very definite vibes between the two of them, obviously. I would love to see that come to fruition somewhere, the two of them together. That'd be amazing. Peter just hanging around the TVA. It was just so much fun. This movie was just so much fun. This movie was exactly what it was supposed to be. There wasn't really anything left on the table, and it was a beautiful way, again, to say, hey, we're going to spend a movie with these characters. And some of these characters are going to come back. They're not all going away, but here's a whole bunch of characters that we can't really use anymore. But rather than just shove all of them off the table, let's take a movie and let's spend some time with a few of them. And let's have some fun one last time with them. I don't think anybody would have thought we were going to see Chris Evans play the Human Torch again, or that we were going to see Jennifer Garner as Elektra again, or Wesley Snipes as Blade, or any of these things. Nobody ever thought that Channing Tatum's Gambit was going to see the light of day. Any of these things. We never knew if we were going to see Laura again. So to hit all those notes, to bring back Hugh Jackman in such a wonderful way as Wolverine, as Logan, to make him a down-and-out version of that character who gets to have a redemption and gets to have so much fun, raunchy kind of fun, violent kind of fun in a fun way because they can't die. It was just a perfect blend. Even the ending where they come together, where he pulls the Armageddon ending on him and switches out at the end and says, I'm gonna die for this. And really the answer is, if they work together, then they don't have to die. They're two people who are basically invulnerable. Yeah, it might kill one of them, but the two of them together, maybe not. So yeah, it might have been kind of an easy, happy ending, but who cares? I think we forget sometimes that these movies are supposed to be fun. Yes, they can go to very serious and emotionally resonant places, and even this movie did. Even with as ridiculous and raunchy and bloody as this movie is supposed to be, it's just supposed to be fun. But the fun being offset by real emotion, real drama, makes it even deeper on both sides. It makes the drama hit harder. It makes the comedy hit harder. To show that these stories can have that kind of depth is important. It's important to have moments like this too. It's important to reward your audience, but it's important to reward your fans for all the time they've spent with these characters and all the love that they have for these characters. And to say, you know, we respect our fans, we respect the source material of these things, we know that they would love this, and we're going to go do it. And we're going to go do it for no other reason than it's fun. It's going to be fun. And it's going to be a great moment for these characters. And we don't know if anything else will happen. We don't know for sure if there'll be other Deadpool movies. But even if we never see them again, this was a wonderful moment for them. And for anybody who's loved these movies or loved these characters, it's a wonderful moment for all of us too. So I applaud them for what they've done here. I'm so happy that they did it. I hope they find ways to do more things like this, even if it's not Deadpool, Wolverine, whoever else. This is similar to the feeling you get when we saw Spider-Man No Way Home. Just being able to bring those characters back for a moment, bring them all together, show the history of what's been done in film with those characters over the last 2 decades was just wonderful for people who have loved those movies and love that character, love Spider-Man. I really had hoped we were going to get some kind of Spider-Man in here, but I guess that was probably too hard. The little thwip thing he was doing with his hands was the only reference we got. I'd really hoped that maybe Toby and Andrew were going to show up or something like that, but probably too much red tape with Sony. Anyway, I love this movie. I really enjoyed this movie, and I think this movie did exactly what it was supposed to do. So this one gets 5 stars all day. I know that you guys haven't seen a lot of variation in ratings for me. Everything's been 4 or 5 stars at this point. You should have seen my Cocaine Bear movie reaction that I did. It was the first one I put up. It got blocked worldwide. I took it down. Spoiler alert, that thing got 2.5 stars. But anyway, I've rambled quite a bit during this video. I'm sure I'll end up cutting a decent amount of this out, or who knows, maybe I'll leave it in. But for those playing along at home, my counter here is about to hit 40 minutes. So you can look at what the actual runtime of this video is. You can see how much I cut out. But there we are, folks. That's my first attempt at just a straight up movie review. No, actual reaction footage to edit or anything like that. I just have to edit this monster down. But let me know if you enjoyed this. I'd certainly do more of these if this is something you'd be up for. I intend to try just about every different type of movie-related video that I can out on this channel. No, I don't know how many other kinds I would try. I don't know how many other kinds there are. But if you have suggestions for things you'd like to see, I'm always open to suggestions. Anyway, thank you for sticking around, hearing me ramble on about Deadpool and Wolverine. I really enjoyed it. I hope you did too. What did you think of it? What were your favorite parts? Were there any parts you didn't like? What would you give it if you're rating it? I'd be really interested to hear what you have to say. If you enjoyed this at all, please go ahead and hit the like and subscribe buttons down there. Click the bell so you can see when I'm putting out new videos. Really appreciate you being here with me today, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care.